Another beautiful day. This global warming is a glorious thing in the summer. It's not too bad in the winter either. Yeah, go across. So, I've been down to Hobart twice now. I'm going to go down next week because the busking down there is really good. I bumped into this American guy. He's been a professional busker for 40 years. And what he does is he spends half the year in Europe for summer, half the year in Australia. But he says Europe is dying for busking. He says that you hardly make a subsistence existence. You can barely raise enough money to eat. He says everyone's broke and people just don't go out. He says Scandinavia used to be the best place to busk. You'd make hundreds of krona or whatever they have. And but he says now people just don't go out because there's so much violence, murder, rape, shootings, and he says that Scandinavia is like a dead place. People are scared to go in the streets and they don't have any money. And he says the rest of Europe is the same, but Scandinavia is what he was talking about because it is the most extreme. So anyway, I am enjoying these trips down to Hobart and busking there because they give me $50 an hour. It's amazing. He says Hobart is the best place in the world. He says Australia is the only place where you can make more than a subsistence living busking, and that Hobart is the best city in Australia for busking. So anyway, I discovered that it was a good city, but I didn't know it was the best. And he's a nice guy. It's called Jim. He has like a drum on his back, plays guitar and a kazoo, and he plays 60s stuff because he's from that era. And I quite like him. We got on quite well. And I met other people down there. I met up with an old friend. That's the whole point of this bloody video. And I hadn't seen them for something like 20 years. And I recognised them. They didn't recognise me till I reminded them. And then we talked about the old days, and they couldn't remember a bloody thing. And I'd say, what about this? Do you remember him, her? And they'd say, no. Oh, yes, I do. And they said, wow, your memory's so good. And I said, well, I don't do drugs. And they said, neither do I. And I said, I don't drink. And they said, neither do I. And I said, well, I didn't take any in my arm. And they said, I took 6, turned and walked away. And I called out, brain fog is the third most common injury. And they kept on walking. But because I'd bumped into them, it reminded me of some other good friend, someone I used to play in a band with. So I went to visit him. Dropped at his place, and he was happy to see me, but then we were talking, and I said, look, I never wore a mask, never took a test, and haven't had any of those in my arm. And then his wife whispered in his ear, and he said, oh, look, it's 6:30, we go to bed really early, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave. They thought I was going to kill them, because I didn't have any and they'd had a whole bunch. My golly. But these two people that I've just told you about, the one with no memory and the one that was scared of dying because they were next to an unvaccinated person, both highly educated, PhDs, And that's how they got them. The smart people think they need to go to university to have a bit of paper to prove they're smart, but the university just turns them into a regurgitating machine. Experts say this, you write it down on your exam, you win. You use common sense and write something else down, you lose. So the longer you've been at uni, the less of a free thinker you are, and the more of a regurgitator you become. And so when they were told by the media, don't do your research or you might not want to take it, they didn't do their research. But me, the uneducated, well, I have been at uni, but me, less educated than them, decided, hang on, if they're telling me not to do my research because if I did I might not want to take it, I wanted to know, what is that information that means I would not take it? And of course, It's the Pfizer study where 2,000 people died in the first 6 weeks. It is all of the animal trials where not a single animal survived. As if I'm going to take that poison. Wow. Anyway, I think I've blah, 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 blah enough. But look, I'm very happy at the moment. My new hobby is driving to Hobart, making a few $100s and coming back with a profit. You know, spending all the money on fuel, spending money on takeaway food for me and Charlie while we're down there, and making a profit. It's worth doing all the way up till Christmas. And then I'll reassess. But I made this decision last year. Enjoy summer. It might be the last summer with civilization around. And I think, yeah, civilization's falling. What about that CEO getting gunned down and then all the people cheering? That's interesting. I bet you it brings about some copycats. But anyway, I am determined to enjoy this summer and probably the autumn because I am quite concerned about society. It might be the last time we get to use all of the bloody luxuries of society. The one who told me to leave because they go to bed at 6:30, actually the one who told me to leave because I was unvaccinated and he was scared I'd kill him and his family, God's sake. Oh, what was I going to say about him? Oh, I can't remember now. But he said some crazy bloody things. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe how brainwashed. He has produced all these research papers, but he didn't do his own research. Gospodи pomiloj, Gospodi pomiloj, Gospodi pomiloj. The crash is coming. Enjoy what civilization has to offer while it bloody lasts. I just remembered. He said, doesn't matter how prepared you are, no one will last more than 3 months in the crash. And I said, mate, we're not talking about stored food. I have a garden, I have fruit trees, I have chickens, I have bloody fish in my creek. And then he looked very disappointed because he hadn't thought of that. He didn't think, people can grow food and survive. He thought, you only get food from a supermarket, and that's what happens when you've had 6 in your bloody ass.